What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for Your Overwatch. They just put up a new experimental card live on the game right now. You can test out these big new changes. First up, Ashe's Dynamite cooldown has been increased from 10 seconds to 12. This one is very minor, and I assume is in an attempt to try to lower the amount of overall damage Ashe is dishing out. The problem is that she has the biggest impact damaging AoE ability in the game, as far as I know. This cooldown landing on the entire enemy team just burns everybody, farms up lots of ult, and then they buffed her Viper rifle to be competitive with other hit scan options, so much so that she kind of trumps them and is the best of all worlds right now. So I don't think this nerf does much other than reduce her number slightly, especially since Dynamite isn't the type of ability that I felt was make or break in getting it back faster. Like, you'll do less damage and you might have to wait a little longer before you set it up, but it requires so much setup. It's not like changing the cooldown of her escape, which would mean she'd be easier to hunt down from enemy players. So perhaps not the biggest change, but these next ones are quite large. Experimental change to Brigitte, where her repair pack no longer grants additional armor health when healing full health targets. This is a change that many from the competitive community have been begging for, because the teamwork at higher levels to filter all your support resources into your DPS so that they can go dominate duels just by having better stats was overwhelming the game. Brigitte was able to fight on the front line, heal all the chip damage, charge up an amazing ult, while also being a pocket healer from range. Now, she can still apply that healing, but it's going to have to be a lot more skillful because you need to react to your teammate losing health rather than the set it and forget it playstyle of over-healing a target preemptively before a duel, which is much easier to manage. But to compensate for that nerf, they've altered some power into Brigitte's barrier shield. It now has 50 more health, 250 in total, but it regenerates slower and has a much longer cooldown when destroyed. When it is regenerating, it'll come back at 85 health per second, but when it's fully destroyed, it's down for 5 full seconds, making Brigitte much easier to kill. So what this rework is intending to do is mean that Brigitte players that have better tank game sense of managing their resources in the brawl, whether it's the reaction to heal a target when they're actually in a fight getting low, or to manage your shield properly so you don't waste it. You have more to work with, but it's more punishing if you misuse it. It'll be really interesting where this lands Brigitte's power level at first glance. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I still think she'll be pretty good. That's sort of the difference that Brigitte has been adding to the game, but perhaps not as meta at the higher levels of play that were really abusing this mechanic they're taking away. At most levels, I feel Brigitte players were armor packing their tanks anyway, which is the worst way to use it, but now that is a bit more forgivable now that since you don't get much benefit from pre-packing a DPS or healer. My hope anyway is that this change turns Brigitte's power to be more about her tank skill set and landing her abilities in a cool way rather than just having more stats for her team, which is an obnoxious mechanic that was too good once you knew how to use it properly. And I know there's gonna be a lot of players that just flat out don't agree that Brigitte is strong, but I think you'll just have to look to any of my smurfing videos. She's a character that, with a bit of game sense, did all the work for you if you know how you're supposed to be playing without much work. So now you'll need a bit more work to get a similar level of impact. Next up, big buffs to D.Va. The fusion cannon's movement penalty has been reduced from 50 to 40%. This is a value they've played around with a lot. Now you'll be able to chase characters down more easily with a faster move while firing. And we've gone full circle with the defense matrix changes. The cooldown has been reduced from 1.5 to 1 second. All roads lead to Rome, it seems. It feels like we've seen defense matrix have a delay of every value imaginable, and now it's back to 1 second where it was, I don't know, 1 or 2 years ago. It being here means that D.Va has a lot of power in order to disable cooldowns. You're really gonna notice this up against the biggest cooldowns in the game, the ones that take a long time to come back but have big impact, like Ashe's TNT or Orisa's Holt, for example, where as D.Va got nerfed and nerfed, making it harder for her to react to those things, it became harder for her to have the perfect management required in order to keep her teammates alive while also looking out for those big cooldowns. You can only be stretched so thin as a tank. So now you'll be able to make those plays much more reliably. And one last buff, micro missiles activation delay has been reduced by half. It used to be half a second, now it's a quarter of a second, which means you kick those babies on, you're lighting up the thing in front of you basically immediately. Micro missiles was always a little bit tricky to use because you would have wanted to have pressed it before you really go in so that it combines with when you want to be firing the fusion cannons, but now that will be a little bit less punishing. And whereas you had to preempt it a bit before, I think you'll be able to pop it before a target can use their escapes to get away more often. And the last change here is to Junkrat. These might not look like they matter. However, I'll have you know that the Junkrat community has been giving Blizzard feedback. PvPX, who is a renowned Junkrat player, went to explain that most recent Junkrat buff, where the mines go faster, actually nerfed his ability to double jump properly, which is a huge asset to the arsenal of high-level Junkrat players. So both of these changes, I think, are directly for him as a player and players like him. The dozen or so really insane Junkrat players that can make use of this kind of tech, where now the concussion mine trigger delay is reduced a bit, so much so that you'll be able to perform those double jumps midair, but also when something dives you and you want to react immediately, the concussion mine will be better at close range offensively as well, not just with the jump, but also you'll be able to take control of Junkrat post-detonation of his rip tire more quickly. The delay used to be 1.5 seconds, now it's 0.9, which is rather quick, and I just feel like this change is made for PvP again, who likes to triple mine jump into the enemy's backline to use his rip tire on a suicide mission in the enemy's backline, and I think those kinds of plays are buffed with this, because now he can use his rip tire in a much more aggressive position, get those kills, and be ready to fire more immediately. Players that were playing him defensively with rip tire, you're not going to notice a difference, because unless you got rushed down or something at the perfect moment, that timing I don't think matters too much, but it does on those wacky Junkrat players that I aspire to be, being a Junkrat enthusiast myself. But that's everything for the experimental card. Let me know your thoughts on this pretty wacky set of balance changes in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out, lets us know that you're enjoying the content, and if you haven't already, hit subscribe and sure to hit the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos go live. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.